Beverly Craig. First, I just want to say a big welcome to anybody who's new today to Passive House Accelerator. Welcome, and please don't be shy, and also please don't be intimidated by any technical lingo that might come out of everybody here on an accidental basis. I quickly just wanted to share that I've recently been reading a book called My Year of Delights by Ross Gay. He's a poet, and sort of the idea of the book is every day he sort of jotted down something that he accidentally came across that delighted him. And I just love the idea of this book. I really savor like every one of these things. And it's just such a great idea. Here we all are here, right? Because we are trying to make the planet a better place. But how often do we slow down, take a deep breath, and appreciate something that's around us? So I just, tonight for a toast, I want to say and challenge everyone, tomorrow is to appreciate an unexpected delight. Cheers.
Cheers.
And back to you, Zach.
All right, thank you, Bev. So we're going to go into breakout rooms for just a few minutes before we get going with the program. So this is a chance to do some rapid fire introductions. Let's see if I get the right number here. Okay, so we'll see you in about 6 minutes.
Hi, everyone. So I'm really honored to be able to introduce Bronwyn Barry to you. I think many of you know her already, but Bronwyn's a registered architect and founder of her architecture practice out of San Francisco that's called Passive House BB. And I think she's going to share a lot of great wisdom today and a lot of tools and tricks that I think are going to be very helpful. She was educated in South Africa, the US, and the US, which maybe that explains the accent. I could never tell. Bronwyn's done some amazing things, organizing and directing California's first all-women construction crew for Habitat for Humanity, which I think is really cool, and founding also Passive House California and the Passive House Network, which she's the board chair right now, but starting to transition out, I think she'll tell us. So welcome, Bronwyn. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bev. So I'm going to get going here because got limited time and way too many slides. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so let's get this show on the road. So my agenda, which is something that I always recommend for everybody to have one, I'll be covering the convincing clients part, which is the big elephant in the room. And I've got a very different take on that I'd love to share. I'm going to look at my processes, how I manage them, really kind of sharing quite a lot of technical weed stuff, including my costs, how to build your team or how I've built my team, the tools and systems I'm using, how I'm controlling costs. And then I'm going to go into the sexy stuff, which everybody always likes, which is actual projects, including some tracking progress and digging into my actual design process. So the big elephant in the room, I always have people asking me, how do you persuade clients to go to Passive House? And I'd like to flip this because actually I don't. What I do is I have established my own baseline for my own practice. And really this is the key that I think everybody should really decide. What is it that you want to do as a professional and to set your own baseline? So, I really encourage people to take ownership of your practice. When we go to visit a doctor, we don't ask a doctor whether he washes his hands in between patients. We just expect that. And as architects, really, we need to own our process and our practices and really really manage that agency. You know, you get to decide what kind of projects you do. And this is how I've established it. I just said to my clients, I only do Passive House. That's my baseline as a practice. And then what I've done is I've made that the choice that I give my clients is really whether to certify or not to certify. And that's plenty. That's really the decision that's theirs to actually make. But everything else is sort of baseline stuff that I only am willing to do Passive House projects as the core part of my practice. And then, so that's just makes it super easy, and it's not even a decision that you give to clients. It's a decision that you make about what you are going to do with your own professional practice and your work life. And really where I'm going with my own practice is really exploring the low embodied carbon materials now, because Passive House is sort of in the DNA of all the projects that I do. And it takes a while to really get to a real level of comfort for that, but it's not that difficult. And what I do is I make it really visible. So these are projects I've done over the past decade with Alvin Gilliland. Any project that I put on my website, I also put the PHPP verification tab, full disclosure. Not all of them actually hit all the numbers, but most of them do. And, really, again, transparency and visibility, making that part of what you do as an everyday practice is key. So building a team, I have really worked very closely with builders for the past decade. I worked exclusively with Alan Gilliland at One Sky Homes. I essentially subcontracted my design services to his firm. So we delivered our projects as a design build package. And now what I'm doing, that since Alan's retired, I'm actually building a stable of other contractors that I'm working directly with. So my team is now really magnifying. I get to work with a huge group of really smart people. And it's a resource that I think a lot of architects don't really utilize very well, because it's a huge group of people that all really are very passionate about what they do, and they have a huge skill set that I can actually utilize and to the benefit of my design and my practice. So how I integrate them into the process is my own contracts are directly with clients, and they include all the regular processes that architects typically deliver, from schematic design, design development, construction documents, and construction administration services. And then what I have my clients do is I have them engage contractors right at the design development phase, and I have them negotiate a pre-construction services contract with the various contractors that I basically set them up with, and they're all pre-selected because they've been, gone through the training. So, there's definitely a pre-qualification process that happens. But when, this alliance, this collaboration happens very actively in the most sort of the juicy part of the construction design and development process. And it's a real synergistic collaboration that I highly recommend. And where I get to utilize these contractors, I really work closely with them to vet products, making sure that the local supply chain is robust enough to be able to spec a specific product. So I'll find stuff and I'll say, hey, find, make sure that you can source this locally, and then give me the cost of it, means and methods. All my details get vetted through the contractor to make sure that it's sequenced correctly, and that they are comfortable with it. They have subcontractors and contractors who can actually deliver that specific assembly or that detail. I get them to do feasibility, and always budgeting. The sooner you get the budgeting and the pricing for particular materials up front, the better. and it just makes for a much smoother transition from the construction documents into the implementation process. So for tools, I don't think I'm using anything revolutionary here, but it is worth sort of reviewing my toolbox. I use Basecamp for all the communication for all my projects. Each of my project gets essentially a digital filing cabinet for all the conversations and the documents and that happen, schedules as well. I use Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides. I love those because you can share them with people and you can have multiple people contributing. For invoicing and reports, I use a service called Ronin app. It helps me also track hours. And the reports feature is something I really value, and it helps me keep a real tight rein on design costs. Obviously modeling, I use PHPP and Design PH. And then for monitoring, post-occupancy monitoring, historically I've used SiteSage, specifically with Alan. So that's really also helped, and it's a key tool in the toolbox. Costs. I only do design cost plus contracts. So all my contracts are hourly. I don't do fixed fee contracts because I think they put myself and my clients in opposition to each other rather than in collaboration with each other. But in order to make clients comfortable with an hourly cost contract, I give a very detailed cost estimate right at the contract phase. This is a document that's the total, totals for all my processes, that I cover, and I even have a more nuanced breakdown of what that actually entails, so that they see exactly how it all gets added up. And then as we go through the process, I issue these reports. So this report here is a recent one for a project I'm working on. And I issue these periodically updated to reconcile against where we are in the construction process. And so that clients can see that the original estimate, what I'm actually billing them, is in line with the estimate that I gave them in the contract. So everybody has full transparency, and I can manage the process, I can manage the costs, I can manage my own fees. And in terms of construction costs, so that was soft costs. Oh, and by the way, I also include all these other estimates that clients will have to pay that are not not delivered by me, but the other fees that clients have to pay in order to build a building, soft costs. And so that clients have a very realistic idea of what they really will need to pay to build and design a building. So that's all soft costs. I've got a ping there. Now I've got hard costs. Hard costs, Alan tracked all of the hard costs for our projects since 2014, or 5 of these anyway. And we looked at a breakdown of what they actually cost per square foot. If you actually then, a recent report came out from Home Builders Digest, looking at similar custom construction projects in the Bay Area, because these numbers look crazy until you compare them to what else is being built, custom homes in the Bay Area. And lo and behold, we turn out to be value conscious, which is awesome to know. We should have been charging much more because we're delivering passive house levels and value conscious prices. In fact, kind of lower than value conscious prices. So never let anybody tell you that passive house costs more. Tracking performance, you know that we've had a lot of our projects monitored. I'm not going to go into this, but we know that Passive House delivers exactly what it says on the tin. These were the estimated and these were the actual for heating and cooling. And our numbers are incredibly, eerily spot on. And to close out, I'm going to go through a couple of projects and the design process that I employ and that I do through my projects. This is a house actually none of these are my house, but I wanted to show you where we start from, which is my clients come to me with these aspirational ideas. These are images that actually a number of my clients have selected these particular houses. And this is a project I'm working on with Carmel Builders in Pebble Beach down in Carmel, Monterey. And this is what my clients started with. This is where they said, okay, this is the kind of house I'm looking for. I went back to them and I said, okay, Monterey has this fabulous tradition of a Monterey Modern. And this is what I'm going to bring to the table and sort of use as a way to help inspire and interpret a design for your property. I dug into the actual property itself. So this is a picture from the site. And the site has these fabulous pine trees, these tall pine trees with a very vertical element. And then these oak trees that have this very horizontal aspect because the soil is really thin in this sort of coastal site. And I went to my sketchbook and came up with these sort of ideas of what I wanted to really propose for my client. And these you can sort of see I'm playing with the verticality of the pines. Oops. And I'm playing with the sort of horizontality of those oaks. And I'm riffing off of that Monterey Modern tradition. And this was an early proposal, an idea for how this house would look. Then we went through a whole lot of iterations. The client wanted that sort of strong horizontality of those modern, flat roofed houses. So I was looking at how do we change that roof to do that. These were some siding explorations, looking at different compositions, different materials. And this is what the actual design is going to hopefully look like. We are currently stuck in an interminable permitting black hole. I've been a year and a half waiting for the approval. I'm sure a lot of you architects are in that position right now. But it's, it's this vertical siding, lots of vertical tall windows and horizontal windows with cedar cladding, which I'm really excited about. And I do hope it's going to get built. These are a couple images from the back side of the house. So front side is pretty vertical and flat facade. It's the north. And on the back side, south, the roof sort of wraps down and comes down quite an extent of the house with much bigger windows. Another project I'm really excited about, this is in Clovis, California, which is sort of Fresno Central State, super hot summer and a quite cool winter. It's foothills. I'm working with Andrew Mitchler on this at Hyperlocal. We've been collaborating on this project, and we've essentially designed a big umbrella over a modern, flat roofed house. We're sort of playing off of the agri vernacular, those metal, steel agricultural buildings that are quite common in this region, and I'm sort of integrating it into residential to provide this nice shade. That's just sort of another perspective on that house. With a nice roof deck, you can see that the clients will be able to utilize on that property. A project I'm working on here, it's a retrofit. This is in Redwood City, close to the home, an existing home that I'm renovating with some lovely clients who have a penchant for Japanese sports cars. So I'm really kind of giving them a big garage in the back here, keeping the existing front cottage, which is a 1950s a shack basically, and we're adding this back, the back side double house that connects to the pool and the existing pool in the back side of this very steeply sloping property. Again, I'm using the roof. I'm finding basically all I'm building is big umbrellas. And, because in California, shade, and more shade is what we need for passive house. And then last project I'm sharing with you here, another lovely set of clients with a spectacular property up, also foothills, but sort of closer to Sacramento. This is in Amador County. And behind them is the spectacular butte. and I'm designing this house. Is still sort of schematic. We're kind of working through design development, but I've designed a huge big wraparound porch, a loggia kind of all around this house, to shade the house from the harshness of our California sun and our heat. And you can see on this sort of more bird's eye view, loggia all around the south and the southeast corner. North side is pretty well shaded, and I've got a courtyard entrance here. This is an existing sort of workshop building that they've also put on the site. So really that's the sum of what I'm going to be what I've been sharing with you today. And I close with this quote, which is one of my favorites. I put it on one of my previous business cards because it's just a really good reminder about what we need to do and what we choose to do, and how we can really own what we do in a much more real way, and really utilize our own agency to deliver projects that we can all be really proud of, and that actually we can hopefully survive the next 30 years in. So that's really it. I hope I haven't gone over my time. I probably have.
Bronwyn, you're perfect. You're great. You pause for a second. We're going to go over to Zach.
Thank you. Yeah, Bronwyn, that was fantastic. Can't wait for the questions and answers here. So I want to take just a quick moment to thank the organizations that make everything happen here at the Accelerator. So our sponsors. A big thank you to our founding sponsors, 475 High Performance Building Supply, Bax to Ingui Architects, Glavel Foam Glass Gravel, Minutair All-in-One HVAC and Dehumidification Units, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, RDH Building Science, Rockwool North America, StoCorp, and Zola Windows. Thank you as well to our champion sponsors, Icon Windows and Doors and SIGA. And thank you to our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And a big thank you to our patron sponsors as well, to Aero Aggregates, Aero Barrier, BR+A Consulting Engineers, Brennan Air Tightness and Insulation, Euroline Windows, Inotech Windows and Doors, Lamelux, Sanderson Sustainable Design, and US Engineered Wood T-Stud. So a big thank you to our sponsors.
Great, thanks, Zach. And don't worry, Natalia and Brian have added you to the queue, and we're going to start with a regular. It's nice to see him back. Jeff X, where are you, Jeff? See, it's been a while. You don't know where the mute button is. Yeah, there you go.
Exactly. Hey guys, how you doing? Bronwyn, how you been?
Good, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. I'm just curious where your reports are coming from. Are they coming from the Ronin or the or Basecamp?
Ronin. That's the invoicing reports are Ronin.
Yeah. Is that subscription?
Yeah, you pay for it.
Well, you pay for everything. Do you pay once or do they keep doing it to you? That's the question.
It's you can just sign up for the different levels. Pro version. There is a free version. I did use that for a while until I got too many clients, which is not a bad problem to have.
Yeah. I'm going through conniptions right now with some, so I need an app. You hit it on the nail on the head when you said that it's trust, and we're doing open book, and the app is the key to that. Absolutely.
No, it's easy. It's easy to manage these things and to track them. And the tracking is key. It takes me 5 minutes. I have to say that app revolutionized my business, because I used to really track all my hours like by hand on a little notebook, like way back in the day. And then every month, you literally spend like 4 hours, have to, add them all up and issue invoices. And that Ronin app has really just made my invoicing. It's just like a 5-minute affair. At the end of every month, I issue an invoice. It just hits a button. As long as I track my hours.
It's just
very
invoicing, though,
religiously.
Right?
Invoicing. No, but I can use it to usually when I send my contracts out, I open up an account for a client. I connect them to the app so they could see all the invoicing. They can go in and log in. And I put in from my estimate, how many hours I estimated the whole project to take, and then it just sort of counts down. You know, as I bill hours, it's got a tracker that it just also keeps it all tracked.
The same way QuickBooks bills takes it out of the reservoir. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's lots, as I say, there's, you know, FreshBooks does that, but some of them don't do the reports, and the reports is key. So, you know, make sure if you're getting those, if you're using one of those, use the one that tracks that actually offers reports. Because I know I've looked at some other ones, and that reporting is pretty awesome.
They're all deficient somewhere or another. It's always a compromise. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks, Jeff. Before we go any further, Bronwyn, tell us about the bike in the background.
Ooh, the bike. So the Passive House Network board gave me that as a sort of a thank you gift for my decade of working at the board. And it's a Van Moof X3 e-bike, and it is super sexy. So I'm loving it. And yeah.
No,
what else
stuff.
do you want to know?
Well, I'm sure that'll start some more, but I had a few personal chats, so I wanted to make sure. And again, thank you for all of your work and what you've done for moving the Passive forward. So thank you for that. Sorry, I'm just looking for the question. Bruce is next. So thanks, Bronwyn, and over to you, Bruce.
Yes, Bronwyn. You have some pretty fantastic graphics there, and I'm very curious as to what CAD systems you use, or what other software programs.
Oh, okay. Actually, I didn't put that in there. I should have. I use a software called Chief Architect, which I have to say, it's sort of a more obscure one that most architects don't probably use. It's primarily been marketed to builders, and I started using it because when I started working with Alan Gilliland at One Sky Homes, that was what he wanted to use. I used to swear at it a lot, but essentially I found that I've just trained myself, and I've just figured out how to actually utilize all the features in it. And now I don't swear at it quite as much. And actually, one of the other things I did that I didn't talk about is I hired one of the teachers who teaches the software as a drafter, and as he happens to live nearby me, which is handy. And so I get him to do as-built. So I go with him and I measure my projects, and but here I get him to generate the as-built, and then I hire him. I pay him obviously to do specific drafting stuff on that software, and it's amazing what you learn when you hire the experts in the software. It's got lots of great features. It's kind of, I'm getting better at the rendering, so thank you for that compliment, because historically my renderings have been horrible. So I've figured out better ways to get better renderings.
Do you find that it talks well with other programs?
It does all the things. It's DWG formatted. What I like about it is it allows me to do specific framing plans, and builders like that. I can literally issue a set of a framing, a wall framing, so for my funky roofs that I keep, I have a tendency to do these sort of more, non-standard funky roofs. And, I know when I'm designing it, I'm like, oh my God, the framer is going to be swearing at me. But I get him all like happy because I can literally issue a framing plan, and I can show him, I can do all this the lumber cuts with the heights and everything for each wall in a project, because that software actually has that capacity. So, it's got its limitations like every other CAD software, but it does have really good integrated schedules. It's even got an energy model that you can integrate, and I haven't even started using that yet, but it's pretty cool.
I'm surprised that wasn't one of the first ones that you make use of.
It doesn't, it's all these things where it doesn't Passive House does things one way and these other energy models do it another way, and never the twain shall meet them. You go back into you dig back into the weeds and the algorithms are different. So it's like, it's easy enough to do my Passive House stuff outside of the model.
Thank you. Good
Thanks,
presentation.
Thanks.
Great question. All right, so we talked about sketches, drawing, modeling, and the dreaded permitting process. And Jeff wrote in, had a question about that lovely dreaded process. Jeff.
Yeah, Bronwyn, this is great. And before I ask my question, I want to say that the end-to-end estimate and accounting for other roles in your estimates, I think is fabulous, because customers just want to know what the total price is, and they need somebody to lead them on that. So I think that's wonderful. So, so just a kudos, and I think that's a great lesson that you've shown us. My question is around the permitting delays, and what strategies can you talk about those? Did they come out of the blue, or were they predictable, or,
honestly, I was having a chat with Matt Hayner at Carmel Building Design about this, because everybody's used COVID as the excuse for how everything's backed up. Planning departments literally had no, the COVID really set them on this path for forcing them to become digital. They literally didn't, most planning departments in California, which, like, irony of all ironies, here we are in the heart of Silicon Valley, and to find a building department that actually uses tech tools is like a revolutionary idea, which is just ridiculous. Planning departments, though, have been hit hard because there's been this huge acceleration in building construction, because everybody's stuck at home. So of course their homes, they want to remodel them, which is good for people like me, because it's more business and I'm busier than all get out. But they haven't been able to increase staffing, and they've also had staffing, people just quit because it's a really tough job, permitting, review, and approvals. And I don't know, it's not a job I would want to take on, but they haven't, it's like they haven't actually got a real plan in place. So that delay apparently has been called, and this is just hearsay, so don't count me on, don't quote me on this, but apparently they've gone from a staff of 3 reviewing this permit down to a staff of 1. And they just can't keep up with the pace. But, it's a real problem, and building departments, cities aren't allocating enough resources and training and, making plans for actually dealing with backlogs. So I don't know. I wish I had the answer, but I don't.
So,
I'm just as frustrated as everybody else.
A quick follow-up question is, do you think the information you're providing them is making their job easy for them?
Honestly, I pride myself in doing a super detailed building permit set with all the information. I still get the same amount of plan check comments. And in fact, I get a lot more head scratching, because a lot of them are looking at, like, I don't know, what am I looking at here? Air barrier, which is like another point of endless frustration. So I don't know. I don't have the answer, I'm afraid. But, I've never got any benefit for pushing Passive House here in California. In fact, kind of inevitably we get a little bit more pushback, just because it's a new thing. Different. And yeah, not your standard.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful. I love hearing you talk on anything you have to say.
It obviously hasn't stopped me, so
Great stuff. Hey, just on a side note, people are asking about how do you turn on Christmas lights on your Zoom feed. You got to go into your video filters, the third line, there's a little blue box with 3 lights. You can turn on the Christmas lights. Hey, we're in the holiday season. Hopefully you have your holiday cheer going on and we're having fun here tonight. So thanks, Jeff. We're going to move over to Sean Rose. Sean, fire away with your question.
Actually, Jeffrey thoroughly asked the questions I was going to ask, so I appreciate that.
I knew you had another one, and so I want to make sure you had a chance to fire something.
He definitely covered. You know, is it due to unconventional construction or the mundane processes? It sounds like all of that. So, yeah. I just want to take the opportunity to acknowledge your values-based practice. How I have clearly identified my 3 key values for my company. Number 1 is fulfilling awareness, to actually choose the projects that light me up and make it worth doing. So I totally get it. I appreciate that.
It's a great way to sort of, get, pre-qualify clients when you just tell them, hey, it's like, I only do passive house. If you don't want that, then, there's a bazillion other architects in the region that can do regular construction, but you set your own bar, and that's the bar I've set for myself. So I think anybody can do that. Yours might not be passive house, but pick it and be transparent.
Might as well like what you're doing.
And that's exactly key. Pick your clients, pick your projects, because you got to do them for a while, right? Like, I'm usually 2 years, at least 2 years from start to finish of a project. And, it's, you get intimate with these. It's a real relationship. So you might as well like who you're working with, and you might as well like what you're doing.
Indeed. Thank you.
That should be a t-shirt, Bronwyn, and we can quote you on that. So it's actually me. I wanted to just talk about shading. I know Mark talked about shading. When I talk about the passive principles, I always would say, high performance windows, and then like in brackets shading, because we don't talk about shading enough. And so, given your climate where it starts to be important, I really like that whole idea of the roof, not only taking care of the number 1 issue with buildings is keeping bulk water away, but now also enhancing the shading. And just wanted to know how you discuss that or bring that up with your clients and introduce that the roof is more than just keeping the water out.
Sure, great question, Sean. And it's kind of funny putting the slide deck together. I was kind of looking, one of the other things about my design practice, I don't, and I put this on my website, I don't have an architectural style that I don't have a signature style. All the projects that I showed to you are quite stylistically and architecturally quite diverse. But I was starting to pick out patterns, and one of them was this shade, this idea of doing an umbrella, because, all of these projects I'm dealing with right now, deck house is this huge, big canopy, this nice big steel structure that kind of came out of this this agricultural vernacular that we sort of saw in the region of where that house is located. It's a big umbrella. The loggia in the house, the butte house, it's a big umbrella. It just extends the roof of this house way outside of the thermal envelope, because I desperately need shading in our climate. And the house in Redwood City, extending, part of extending that roof, it comes quite far out over the south side. And it's not only this fun architectural feature, but it's a very practical design solution to give me that shading that I need in order to meet my passive house criteria. So shading, it's key. I don't like to use solar heat gain coefficient. I think it's a crutch tool that's been used and it just doesn't work sufficiently, because once that heat is inside the building, you're stuck with it. So yeah, it's a core feature of passive house in my region. And I know I've been tweeting about this big lawsuit $10 million, a developer was sued because they designed and built this all glass multifamily building right here in San Francisco. And literally the occupants can't stay cool in their house. So the developer they sued the developer and they won. So if you even if you aren't doing passive house, if you're not dealing with shading, you're gonna, your insurance and your, errors and emissions are gonna climb significantly if you're not taking care of that.
Great stuff, Bronwyn. And again, I think you mentioned too is how you talk, like, I mean, you only do passive house projects, but in the process of moving towards it, you would get clients to sign saying, hey, I've taught you about passive house. If you don't want to do it, like, I don't want to be liable for your future undoings of not, building to the future. So I'm glad that you were able to just say, you're hiring a passive house architect. That's what I am. Don't want me? Don't hire me. So
yeah, no, and I won't do your project. That's the other part. I'm not doing it. Sorry. It's like I get to pick and choose what I do. And that's what architects need to own, that, you actually have way more agency and way more say than what you actually, what I hear other architects actually engaging in that conversation. And
could I break in here just for a little bit? Bronwyn,
2 seconds.
Builders can do the same. Builders can do the same thing, and I'm doing the same thing myself.
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, that's your butt on the line. That's your liability. That's your own responsibility. And again, I sort of translate this to what we, doctors, you don't go to a doctor and say, oh no, I don't want you to wash your hands in between patients. You wouldn't even think about that. You wouldn't say to the surgeon, oh no, don't use that surgery technique on me because I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it's like, come on, we know what we need to do as professionals, and we have to own that, and we have to actually implement. And that's, thermal bridging, air sealing, ventilation. Those are basics. It's not a add-on. So I don't know. I'm just always amazed that nobody else is doing this as a general baseline practice. It's just the core fundamentals.
No, it really is. And again, Jeff, thanks for chiming in there too. I know many of builder that have, been scared to just become passive house builders. And I can tell you, they have changed their city because they wanted to do it. And all of a sudden, because they were bold and some thought were crazy, they are now busier than they ever could be because they have just said, put the stake in the ground saying, I only build passive house. And in some smaller towns, I've heard some great stories of builders making that change. So all you out there, put your stake in the ground in 2022, saying all I'm doing from now on is passive house. And you'll be shocked about how the clients will come. It's that same line. Build it and they will come. Moving along, Natalia, you are next.
Hi, thank you. I think it's in the same line as the previous questions. I'm interested in hearing you talk about how you deal, like how you explain to clients these design moves, when with the passive house approach, because I'm sure unless they're super educated in passive house principles, they might want a window here or an orientation, or they might ask you why you think this is the way it is, and how you deal with that.
Sure, and transparency. And this is exactly where the PHPP as a design tool is genius. I literally open up the PHPP, I show them which window is in the PHPP, and when you change it, what does that do? I have to say, we've got all these tools available to us. Design PH is brilliant for an immediate feedback loop. Show your clients what the impact of their choices are and how that affects the building performance. I do my PHPP early, right at schematic design, before we detail and go into the nitty-gritty, the weeds of the rooms and the windows. I want them to get a baseline sense of where the schematic design hits on the passive house targets, because it's just a benchmark tool to number to hit. clients are not stupid. And really just show them you've got the tools available to you, and just show them exactly, they get to choose, that's the target that they want, and show them how to get there. So
right, so just right from concept, when you're massing and siting the building, is transparency basically.
Yeah, and really concept design is really just from doing a number of projects. You really start to sort of integrate that into your design vernacular and know, right out the gate, shading. I mean, it's just sort of an obvious, like that's my baseline. I get a sense of what my wall assemblies should be, based on, I've done a number of projects throughout California. I have a sort of a kind of rule of thumb idea of what I'll need, but I dial that in with the PHPP. And so, we optimize, you use it as a design tool. It's a genius design tool, and it's got real clear targets.
Thank you. Great.
I have to say though, I have been super fortunate. All my clients, it's amazing, have been engineers, literally rocket scientists, physicists. All of them really understand thermal, heat transfer, and all of them have found me because they have been looking for somebody who actually understands basic thermodynamics. It's kind of interesting. My clients have also self-selected for people who understand that managing heat transfer actually is possible, and that we really should be doing this in our buildings. We do it in, we do it all these other tech and data-driven industries, and yet our construction industry, our building industry, we're still doing stupid stuff like, I don't know, there's lots of examples. I probably shouldn't start pointing fingers.
Bronwyn. I would have loved the conversation you had with that rocket scientist when you talked about air tightness, because I hear even the International Space Station's got a few little leaks. So interesting enough. All right, Zach, over to you.
All right, thank you. So I just have a couple of announcements for events that are coming up, as well as what's going on the Passive House podcast right now. We have a great interview that Matthew Cutler-Welsh conducted with Bohemia Hookham. Bohemia is a board member of the Australian Passive House Association. She's also a designer and CPhD at Design Inc. Melbourne. And they talk about her journey to Passive House, as well as her work on the Glenroy Community Hub, which is this really cool community center, Passive House community center near Melbourne. So please check that out on the podcast. And then we also are close to wrapping up, not quite there, to wrapping up our bonus episodes. These are interviews that I conducted at the FIASCon conference in Tarrytown, New York. Now it's been probably six weeks ago, 7 weeks, maybe 2 months ago. So great conversation live right now with Michael Ingui, founder of the Passive House Accelerator, as well as principal at Baxton Ingui Architects, and Shannon Pendleton, co-host of Construction Tech and principal at Sanderson Sustainable Design. They talk about their key takeaways from the conference. So you can check that out as well. Tomorrow, and I'm going to shoot a link into chat right now, so you can get the link and join us tomorrow. We have episode 3 of the Building Performance Interactive. This is our Ireland and UK-based show. This episode will focus on waterproof, breathable fabrics in low-carbon EnerFits at scale. And you can see this building right here. It includes a site visit of this really awesome EnerFit project in Ireland. We'll have co-hosts Dara McGowan, Mike Jacob, and Ben Adam Smith. We'll be joined by Andrew Simmons of Simmons Mills Architects and Tim Hulse of EcoVert Solutions. This is going to be, if you're curious about EnerFit in the UK and Ireland, go you seek no further, you know where to go. It'll be at 9 a.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. GMT. That's 6 a.m. for us on the West Coast. Hopefully you'll join us. We'd love to see you there. And let's see, I think Oh yes, next week on Construction Tech, we are going to dive into direct current microgrids with direct energy partners. So a great kind of conversation about the connection of Passive House and the clean energy transition and DC and microgrids. So that is really exciting. And then on the showcase, we have Satpal Kaur joining us again, and she's going to be talking about the SS United States. This is a famous ship that is undergoing a major envelope retrofit. And so we'll be talking about air tightness and water tightness and other cool features of this building or this boat and the connection to Passive House. It's kind of fun because, you know, there's that historic kind of sailing vessel that is often referred to as the sort of proto Passive House. Well, now we get to look at how a Passive House designer is approaching a retrofit of a ship. So next week is going to close out our 2021 live programming. We'll take a couple weeks off, 3 weeks off, and then come back on January 10th. But the podcast will include new episodes throughout the break. So with that, I will hand it off back to Sean.
Thank you. And we'll get some final words from Bev.
Sure. Hi. So since I was talking about delights before, I thought I'd share my delight for today, which isn't actually appreciating beauty at all, but it was completely a surprise and it very much delighted me, which is I'm a curator for Building Energy Boston, and I'm curating a session on Passive House projects and affordable housing. And Callahan, which is a builder I've never come across, about 100 employees. They have 14 either certified builders or certified Passive House consultants already, and they have several others training, which is really impressive. So I was like, whoa, wow, I didn't even know you guys were a builder. So just wanted to share that. Sometimes good things are happening out there in the world you just don't know about. So
I'm sorry, I missed that. Who was that?
Callahan in Massachusetts. So
Awesome.
they're GCs and they do subbing for site work, but otherwise they sub out all their other stuff.
Hey, Beth, can I add something?
I'd never heard of them.
Can I add something about Callahan?
Sure.
Sure. They're also lean construction certified. A bunch of them are. So they're looking at not only the high performance, but they're looking at how to do it at low cost. So the combination is stunning.
Excellent. Thanks, Jeff. Looks like I got some research to do. Bev, thank you for joining us as a host. It is always great to see you the last few weeks, and we'll continue on with next week before we hit the break. People were wondering what to do at the break. If you've missed any episodes, again, go to the Accelerator YouTube page, see them all. There's great resources. Watch your favorite one. And then again, all the different podcasts, as we said earlier before we kicked off the show, Zach, Matthew, Mary, Ilka, Sydney, and the rest of the Accelerator team have pumped out enough podcasts to get 87,000 downloads. Bravo, Zach and team. That's great, great episodes. The last one talked about ASSs, and that means air sealing specialists. It's lots of fun when they get to connect with the different presenters. So that actually concludes the hour, but we still have questions to fire on with Bronwyn. So we'll keep Bronwyn as long as she will stay. There's some great questions. Please stick around. One thing I mentioned is the planning of the Passive House experience, where we want to look at how do we get either a virtual or a real life opportunity for everyone to enjoy what we all know is a Passive House. So get a team together, and we'll talk about more in the new year. So that will get back to the question. So yeah, if you do need to leave, we understand. We're glad that you came for the first hour, and we're going to switch over from the showcase to the after hour with more questions with Bronwyn. And we are going to kick it off with, looking at my list, Mr. Brian. Brian, you still with us?
Yes, I am. I wanted to ask, on your projects, as you started out in Passive House, how you found your team In other words, contractors who were dedicated to passive house construction and who were open to the types of designs you wanted to do. And my second part of the question is, who takes the lead on achieving passive house construction, meaning more specifically, educating, either you educating the contractor on the materials and assemblies, detailing, means and methods and costs, or is it more the contractor educating you, or is it a back and forth?
Bronwyn, I think you're muted.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Sorry about that. So I said, started out saying it's a mutual thing. I find my contractors, because I done a lot of passive house advocacy work. So I've found them from being in Passive House California and the Passive House Network. I find them and I use them because they have taken the Passive House tradesperson training class. That is the baseline pre-qualifier. If they haven't taken that course, I don't want to work with them because I don't want to be educating them. They need to educate themselves at least to the baseline. But what I do then is we work together to, so in terms of delivering Passive House, my details and my drawings are all, pre-qualified to meet Passive House. The model is done before they even dig up, one set of dirt on site. So the delivery of that should be just a simple function of implementing the design. Obviously, it's never always quite that easy, but because I work with the contractor through the design development and the construction document process, they also get to really help determine what means and methods, what products we use in the drawing set. So they really get engaged and they take ownership right up front. And I think that process is key. They aren't given a set of drawings that they then have to somehow or other cobble together to make a passive house. They've already been actively engaged in the process way further upstream. So the likelihood of a successful outcome is magnified, immeasurably. And I'm just stuck a slide up here. It was a bonus slide that I kept for the after hour. I'm only able to stay until 5:15 because I actually have a client meeting. But I wanted to sort of look at, these are the sort of some assemblies from some recent projects. And the one on the right here is the Sebastopol project, ICF basement, open web truss floor assembly, and overframe roof assembly. This is the Carmel project, raised uninsulated crawl space, insulated floor assembly, and actually an interior air barrier with regular framing running along for my overhang. So I switch depending on whether I need to do overframing or I need to do rafters running long to get the long overhangs that I'm favoring and needing for shading. Then I bring my air barrier to the interior and I sort of do traditional weather barrier, wind barrier on the outside, air barrier on the inside. And that's this is sort of the proposed assembly for the Butte house that I'm in design development. So the wall assembly, the foundation materials, and how each of these get insulated. The contractors really get to work with me to. I give them a lot of sort of feedback and input and agency and choice, and we discuss this up front. It's a collaboration. It's not just me saying thou shalt do it this way. And I think that collaboration, builders, I mean, I don't know why architects, idea that architects are this front, dictators of how designs need to be built. I mean, if you aren't utilizing contractors and builders, you really are leaving a huge resource off the table. And I'm just staggered that architects aren't working this way. It's fabulous.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Bronwyn. And again, I know you're time sensitive, and I think that answers a question that Patricia had as well. So moving along, Adrian had a question, and we'll see what else we can fit in.
Hi. So I used to work for a swimming pool company, and then after working for them, I kind of thought like the first thing I was gonna do on my first passive house project, I was gonna be get rid of a swimming pool. So how do you, what considerations do you use to include a swimming pool in a passive house project?
Interesting question. Actually, the retrofit I'm working on is the first project I'm working on that has a swimming pool, and it's existing pool. So I'm not putting it inside the passive house envelope. It's totally outside. It's not part of the building itself. So it's not, it's not like a leisure center where the swimming pool is integrated into the building, or a public kind of swimming pool project. So
because I
actually don't really have the answer to that question, I'm afraid. But I don't know. I mean, am I missing something? Are you asking a specific question that I'm not?
I was asking because I know the city of Vancouver, like 2023, when they start doing the energy ratings mandatories, they're gonna have to include the whatever the swimming pool or like fire pits, whatever it's energy is using is gonna be included in it. So I wasn't really sure if passive house actually has to include that.
Maybe Bronwyn, I can jump in there because if you follow the Passive House Institute on LinkedIn, they are doing an advent calendar, and day 7 of the advent calendar showed a passive house pool. So there are ones out there in the world that can be done, and I'm enjoying following along with the advent calendar because every day there's another passive house feature from the Institute. So check that out. It's pretty cool to see that pool. And I know the pool at UBC, even though it's not passive house, I know the architect who is very much involved in passive house tried to get there. So it did have some input in it, but it's just not official. But we're getting there in Vancouver. So thanks, Adrian.
And Sean, just to add, Passive House Institute does have some planning guidelines for interior swimming pools, and so I just shared a link to that resource in the chat.
Zach, you're fast. It's great. Fast, factual, and fun, I might add. One more question, Mark. See if you can fit into Bronwyn's time frame here.
All right, Bronwyn, beautiful, wonderful. First, a compliment, right? You mentioned something when you were talking about the plan set that you put in about the air barrier strategy. Does that mean that that is an actual page of your print? And then my funny way of working that together is, can we add an R page to the plan set so we have a red line going around it? I think it'd be brilliant. So go for it. Thank you.
So all of my assembly details, I have the air barrier outlined and the bulk moisture barrier. That is a very integral part of the drawing, all of my detail set. I don't have a specific page, but I do have my passive house. I've started to do a passive house metrics page where I have, my assembly, I have my treated floor area, I have my roof area. Those passive house metrics, it's sort of becoming standard practice. It's easy for me to generate that with the Chief's Architect software. And it's just sort of becoming a standard page in my document set, just like an energy model page. I put my passive house metrics in my document set.
Absolutely wonderful. Bless your heart. Thanks.
Sure.
And Bronwyn, just because I'm conscious of time, we got 2 minutes here.
I do.
I will email you the last few questions here that Julie and Laura had. Peter, you and I can talk about that in a second. And Aaron, I think I can answer your question too. So we'll dive into that. So Bronwyn, thank you so much. You know, we're all fans of everything you do. Thank you for sharing your story. I actually can't wait to post. I took a snippet of your slide because a lot of people are interested about how we all can get converted to just doing passivos all the time, and love it so much. So good luck tonight with your client. They are lucky to have you. And it's always great to see you. Take care.
Thank you, everybody. It's always fun to be here and carry on passiving. So
that's it. We shall. All right.
Thanks, Bronwyn.
Take care. Ciao. Bye-bye.
So again, Julie and Laura, didn't mean to disrespect you, but we're conscious of time, so I'll make sure that we get those questions answered. Peter had a question about glass and using the electromagnetic coating by View. I know, is it dynamic glass? And Ian, you might want to chime in. I know they're in Vancouver and they are actually working on a couple of passivos projects. So for those that aren't aware of this glass, this is a glass that is connected to a pretty big, panel of software where they're able to tint the glass as the sun's moving around the building, and so you don't get overheating. And I know that they're, been working with a couple of multifamily projects and commercial projects. So we need to see how that particular product gets installed and how it affects the performance aspect of Paso. So
yeah, I haven't heard any testing of it. It would be interesting. I put my concerns in the chat thing. I think it's going to change the properties of a triple glazed IGU a little bit. So I think PHI will have to add in feedback somehow on it. And someone needs to do testing. I just don't know if that's happened yet.
Yeah. So Peter, just to confirm, did that answer your question? Yeah. So again, it's a very unique product. For those people that want not to have shading, which I think when you look at the cost, not to disrespect View, and if there's anyone out there with View or Dynamic, hopefully you can prove me wrong. But when you're looking at shading options by, having a bigger roof or doing different shading ideas, I think the shading might be cheaper than the expensive glass, but hopefully someone can prove me wrong. Because again, some people don't want big overhangs, which I think you'd be, especially in climates like Vancouver where there's a lot of rain and we need to deal with block water, overhangs are a good thing. But I'm a little biased being in the wet coast and having 3 atmospheric rivers hit me the last 3 weeks. So I think that is it. So Aaron had a question. Sorry, Aaron. The post-occupancy monitoring right now, I believe it's more of just, how the customers feel. We haven't installed any devices when it comes to the monitoring. I know many of us have an Aware, or they have energy data connected to the electrical panel, so they're checking the energy monitoring. Hopefully, have more of that data. When I first sat down, I actually hit about 100 on my Aware, and now that I've been in my box for an hour and a half, I'm down to 81, and the CO2 is hitting that line when I need to crack the window because I'm starting to kill myself. So on that note, any other questions or any other updates? Why are you looking for things? I think Ken left, but as I said earlier, Monty Paulson, again, if you haven't seen any of his presentations, you're missing out. Not only does he deliver an amazing course called the Pattern Language, which I know is going to be offered in the new year. Yesterday, he did a presentation talking about retrofits to the Pasos network, and it was awesome. So I know Ken will have that out shortly as a recording, so please check that out. Because if you've done all your passive house training and you've done your certification, you either have your designer or consulting or tradesperson course, the Pattern Language is something you definitely want to check out. I would say it's your next phase or continuing education, because it's just a really good way of looking at buildings differently. And again, the fact that he took a book that was written many years ago and added a passivist twist to it, it's great. So add that to your 2022 planning and training list. So does anyone else have any passive house news, personal news, victories, challenges, opportunities you want to share? We'll turn it as a bit of an open mic for maybe the next 12 minutes before we all carry on to other activities, but just
a small win We have a project that we're working on. It's a library community center. Probably mentioned it before. And the state gave a small amount of money, $2 million in a $45 million project. And then they required us to do LEED certification. So we put in an exemption because we were basically going beyond LEED with everything else that we're doing. And they have accepted our exemption finally after 2.5 months. So I'm hopeful that that will be something that other people can try to do too if we're going above and beyond.
Julie, that is fantastic news. That's not a small one. I think that's a huge one. You know,
Yeah.
Again, it might be small. Yeah, it might be small now, but again, these are the things where we crack the code or crack whatever it needs to be. And so then we open up for other people to have opportunities. So thanks for being a leader, Julie. That's great news.
Nothing against the USGBC, but I don't want to spend 200 grand documenting something when we could be buying solar panels and heat pumps.
And as Mark would like, or having to buy more bike racks. So that's great.
Right.
Anyone else have any news? Anyone, any good, oh, sorry, actually, you know, yeah, you had great news last week. And why don't you just share your news from last week? If anyone missed it, this is again another fantastic win for Santa Fe.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Last week, the city of Santa Fe announced that we, along with our partners at Habitat for Humanity, won an RFQ. The city will donate a very small but very well located piece of property for development for affordable. And now it will hopefully be Passive House and certified with B Public prefab panels. But it's a 5-unit development with Habitat here. And anybody who's, okay, I put it in the chat. You're welcome to come to our open studio next Thursday for tamales and beer. But maybe everyone else will come for the install of these 5 units. And it's right on the Santa Fe River, which is not really a river. It's a dry riverbed, but it is 3 blocks from the historic plaza. So this is a very valuable piece of property that the city of Santa Fe is donating for affordable development. So it was a big win, really lovely to be partnered with Habitat. And we're just tickled to share that news. Thank you. Thanks, Sean.
Well, again, great location. And again, this is the ones that we can help promote. This is one that hopefully Habitat Humanity will promote across North America. And, you know, small wins, you know, get some of these affordability things kicked off. You know, again, I always talk about we're definitely working a lot on the Tesla Roadsters of passive houses. There's definitely a lot of you that are working on the Tesla 3 models of this, and this fits in that category too, where we were able to give it to all. I saw that Vida just popped in from the PHI, so it must be like 2 or 3 in the morning. So I don't know why she's up so late, but good to see people from across the pond joining us late at night. So if you're still there, thank you, and say hi to the rest of the PHI crew. So appreciate that. I think that's it, folks. I think we should probably wrap up. I know for myself, we got an early morning. 6 a.m. is going to come real quick. I got to make sure I got coffee ready to go. So everyone, thank you very much for joining us. Great evening. I'm going to kick off a new send off because I've heard some great things from the podcast and from our shows. Be curious, be a warrior, be an ass. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. I'm out.
Good night. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, everybody.